This, now, let me put it your way so you can read it. This is going to be a simple star block, yeah? Just written it out on my software. And we need 4 of these. Now, you can do them any colour you want, yeah? My granddaughter's choice would be, I know, purple. That's her favourite colour. So I'm going to do purple and yellow. I was trying to look for a spotty purple, but I couldn't find one in my stash. So I'm going to do it with a plain purple. And we're going to work through this different form of a cutting sheet in a couple of ways. I got 2 purples and I've decided that I want to use the lighter one. So boom, that goes out the way. And what we need for this, first of all, the D patch, the centre square is a 3.5 by 3.5 inch patch. So let me just get my fabric together. This has just come out of my drawer as it is. Work out the best way of folding it. That's let me just work all this out for myself a moment. No, I don't think so. I think, oh, I already cut some that end. I want a clean strip. So let's do it this end. So if I go from one side to another side, yep, that's your 42-inch width. Okay, I'm gonna try my best to fold that in 4. Yep, this is how I do it. Fold it in 4, get it on my cutting board. Ooh, look at where my edges are. It's not very good. It's not been cut very well in the shop. So, yeah, now I got it on my cutting board. Move it over. I can see, can you see with me, that edge is not very good. Okay, so, moving it up in your direction so you can see it, smoothing it out, and then I'm going to get my nice large so I folded it so it's selvage to selvage, which is usually the opposite way the shop will sell it to you. Okay, so I've had to refold it a tinsy bit, and then I can get my ruler squared up, making sure I'm going to give myself a lot of room this side because that is really a ragged edge. Okay, and then I'm going to get my sharp cutter from the other side of the room, and for the D block it's 3.5 inches square. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is cut my 0 line, okay, and then 3.5 inch strip. Okay, so now I can get rid of the rest of that fabric, get rid of that, it's going in the bin. I'm going to turn it over. As you can see, I didn't quite make it, did I? No. So, I'm not going to cut it again. Well, what I am going to do is that piece that I knew is not quite wide enough, I'm going to put to the other end, and then I'm going to straighten this up on my board, which I know is the correct measurement, although I'm not too happy. I can see it's slightly taking a dip, so I haven't got it nice and straight on a line. Yeah, okay, I'm going to bring my cutter up, and I want 4 of them, and I'm going to move along until I know that that's nice and straight. Yeah, and I want 4 of these. It's 3.5 inches wide now, so I'll do a 0 there. I want to do a 3.5 and a 7 and a 10.5 and a 14. Sounds right to me. Right, so take off my thingy bob, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 3.5 inch squares. I can get rid of that now, don't need it, and I can go in my scrap pile. So those are all the centres for my 4 blocks. So the next thing I want to do is to cut some yellow. Let's look at the next thing. I want to cut 8 patches of triangles. Okay, now when I look at the top here, it says that this is in white, the background. It's going to be a 2-inch square. That corner is a 2-inch square, which tells me that these are going to be 2-inch half triangles. Although it says to cut 2 3/8 and then cut them in half, one way to do it is forget the 3/8 because it's just like rounded down to being accurate, but cut 2.5 inch squares and then cut them diagonally in half. But I prefer not to do that because I know it's going to be a 2-inch half square triangle because that block is 2 inches. So at the end of the day, it's got to figure out, hasn't it? So these are actually 2.5 inch half square triangles. Now let me show you how I'm going to cut that. I am going to cut a strip that is 2 inches wide. I'm going to cut off my selvage edges and I'm going to cut a 2-inch strip, and I'm hopefully in one strip I will have enough. Oh, I didn't cut that very well. Let me just cut that off. So get rid of that yellow for a moment. So this is my 2-inch strip, and starting the one edge, that's my 2-inch strip. Okay, I am going to get down from my wall a couple of cutters. This one is called a Creative Grids folded corner clipper, and this one is from simplicity.com, an easy angle cutter. Yeah, and whichever way you want to use them. Okay, I'm going to do this one because it's smaller, but you put your top of the flat piece, and there it says 2 inches. Okay, and I'm just going to tidy off that edge a moment. Okay, get rid of that. So I got 1. Yep, the other one works exactly the same. And then turn it around and say is 2. Okay, then there's 3 and 4 5 6 7, 8. So now I got the 8 half square triangles that I need to make up these flying geese which are at the side of it. Now you could, as I said, do 2.5 inch. You can make a 2.5 inch strip and cut 2.5 inch squares, and cut them in half that way. But this way means that we're actually not wasting any fabric whatsoever. So I do recommend you get yourself a folded corner clipper or an easy angle to cut half square triangles. So those 8. So then we move on, and what we need is the white background fabric. Right, so I know I just said to you to cut 8. I want 4 of these blocks at the end of the day, which is why I cut 4 centres. I've just cut 8 half square triangles to go around it. But in actuality, I'm not going to do it on camera, but I am going to need 32 of those to go around the 4 blocks. But let's carry on. So now I've got out some white. I'm now using a Stripology Squared Mini, okay, because I only want to cut little bits of fabric. So I'm putting my mark line on there, so I know it's straight. And these, I want to cut 2-inch squares. So I'm going to cut 2-inch. I don't think I got enough. No, it's not 8. So 2-inch and 4-inch. So that's going to give me strips. Yep. I can turn those around. Again, put my lines on so I know it's straight. Cut my 0, cut my 2, and cut my 4. So now I know I got 2 4-inch triangles. Do you know about that? I can turn this around and I can cut again, making sure my lines are straight on there. Okay, cut my 0, cut my 2, and cut my 4. So now I know that those 2 are 2-inch squares, and again that goes over in the scrap pile. Okay, so that's the background 2-inch squares. I wanted 4 of them. For 4 squares, obviously you're going to want 16, so you have to keep going. But I'm just putting together 1 square to show you. The next thing I want is a 4.5-inch square, and these are what you call quarter square triangles. Now this is nice and easy because it's 4.25, and if I cut a 4.25-inch square, yeah, which I know I've got on here. So although mine is a bit squiff, I can do it from here. If I cut the knot, first of all, I need to cut me a nice straight edge. Then I can turn my thing around and put my, this time I put the dotted line on the edge, making sure I got enough, making sure it's square, yeah. And I can cut 4.25. That's one way. Now I know that's right, I can turn it round and I can put my, I can square that up again. Okay, so I put my 0 line. I know I've got plenty of fabric here, so I can put my 0 line on, give me a nice cut. Then I can turn it round and put my dotted line on the edge. That's just turned under a little bit. Put my dotted line on the edge, square it all up, and do my 4.25-inch cut. Now that's a perfect 4.25-inch square. All right, and these are going to make up the middle of what we would call flying geese. So now to cut these, we need to do it diagonally. So I'm just going to get, this small ruler will do, right? So I am literally, as per the instructions, going to cut it from corner to corner, and then the other way, hopefully without moving anything, from corner to corner the other way. Okay, and then this is the quarter square triangle for the middle of the flying geese. Okay, so that's everything cut for one triangle. So for the rest of them, you're going to have to cut these. I just want one middle. You're going to have to cut the rest of those ancillary pieces to sew together for the other four. Now, other three. So I'm doing mine both of these because I like it the same. These are going to go in the four corners of the quilt, so I want them to be the same. You can do them mix and match, whatever colours, whatever scraps you've got. I want mine to be identical in the four corners, but it's entirely up to you. So to start off with this simple star block, some people call it a saw block, but it's a very simple block. So we've already cut out our flying geese. There they are, 4 of them. And we're going to want corresponding wings. All right, so 1, 2, 3. I want 8 of them actually. So anyway, I'll just take a couple. To get started, and I'm going to do them in what we might call I'm going to sew them one after another to keep the rhythm going. So my material, because it's plain, it doesn't matter which way up it is. However, if you're using pattern fabric, then obviously it's right sides together. Okay, so fit that onto your flying geese, making sure that you're lining it up at the bottom and lining it up on this bias edge. Then using your 1/4 inch sewing stitch, length 2, I am just going to do all 4 in exactly the same way and then cut the thread. Save thread, and you know you've got all 4 done in exactly the same way. Right sides together and through the machine. I always do the left hand side or the lefts first, because then it gives it a more controlled look to the finished flying geese. But that 1/4 inch seam is extremely important. So having done those, now I got a string of them like little flags, and I can just cut between them. Okay, and I can press them, give them a quick press to set the seam. For new people who've not done a lot of patchwork, setting the seam allows the thread to cinch in tighter to the fabric. That's why we set the seam. And then we're going to roll it back and press it. We'll do that with all 4. Just roll it back with my fingers and then, whoops, press it. I don't know whether this little cubby hole over here is actually showing on the camera, but that's what I'm doing. Right, it says 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I don't know. Bit of dust got on there. Right, okay. Looking at the bottom of my iron, nothing wrong with that. Okay. So now I've got 4 that have got one side together. So then we take another 4. And we're going to do it the opposite way round. So right sides together, making sure that the bottom line and the top line are correct. And using that 1/4 inch seam straight down 1, plonk the next one on, exactly the same, making sure it all marries up on this bias seam and the bottom. And so the next one on, and just get that under my needle, and the next one on, and the last one. Okay. When I'm happy that the shapes match up, I'm ready to sew. Cut that and cut them apart. It saves cotton, and also it means that you won't get that little bit of bird's nest underneath when you go from piece to piece, because the needles and the foot is at the right level. So then again, what I'm going to do it with just all of them all in one go is put the heat on to set the seam. Then I can literally with my finger roll back the that seam and give it a press. When I use my finger to roll it back, because if, as some people do, they use the nub or the end of the iron to fold back the seam line, and if you do that, then the heat of the iron can actually warp that seam line a little bit. So it's better to do it with your finger and then plonk your iron on. Okay, that's a little tip, because you can end up with a bit of a wonky edge or a wonky seam with the heat of the tip of the iron. So just do it with your fingers and then iron it back. So now we've got 4 nicely made what they call flying geese, and you should have your 1/4 inch seam now above the tip. Okay, that's important because obviously we're going to sew to that tip. So having done those 4, they're ready to go. Those 4 pieces are ready to go. So we can make the top line now. So take one of your 2-inch squares of background. Take one of your flying geese, remembering that the stars are coming out from the middle, so don't put them on the wrong way up. Okay. and then just marry that up to your original, you know, your flying geese, and 1/4 inch all the way down on the one side, and then I will iron this in a minute. I'm just going to fold it back for now, and a square on the other end, because these are our corner squares of this block. A square on the other end, exactly the same. And then I can just set the seams, and I use my fingers again to roll it back, and my fingers again to roll it back. Lots of people do use the iron to roll it back, but you can end up then that, you know, it leads to it being a little wonky. So there's the top line of our 6-inch block, which is 6.5 before we put it in. Then take your centerpiece, which I think is 3.5, and take one of your flying geese. Okay, can you see this? One of your flying geese. And then you're going to want another one of your flying geese. Again, stars pointing outwards. And then all we're going to do is to marry that up on our block. And this time, we're going to make sure, now I don't know, I'll try and get the camera to focus in. But you can see the X there. So we don't want to sew, and we want to sew right across that X so that we're not going to lose a point. All right. So as you come down with your sewing, if it looks like you're going to intrude on that X, then, well, just wiggle it a bit so that you don't, and then bring it back straight. Okay? That's the trick. So that when I hope you can see I've gone straight through that X. So when I open it up, I'm still going to have my points. I'll do it the other side as well a moment before we go and iron it. So the other side, again, in there, points face that are going to face outwards, right sides together, and again, 1/4 inch all the way down. When you get to that end of that block, just see if you need to wiggle it slightly so that your needle doesn't intrude on that point. See what I mean? So now I can just set the seams both sides, and then I can finger push it back, and then I can then iron that. I finger push this one back, I think, yeah. So I'm, well, I don't know. Nope, I'm finger pushing that one back. Yeah. So now I've ironed that. So now I've got my middle square section made. So that's going to go with that. See how we're going on? And now we've got to do exactly the same with the stars pointing downwards. We need two 2-inch squares. To go on here. Exactly the same as we've just done. And one on the other side. Keeping it square, keeping our seam allowance the same. Setting our seams, finger rolling it back, and the other side, finger rolling it back, putting the iron on. Oop, oh, see, I just creased that now. Didn't mean to, but I did. Take that crease out. So now we've got the bottom part. So now what do? We've got to put the 3 layers together. I mean, that's common sense, isn't it? Okay, this is our square, so we've got to put the 3 together. So take the top, and here we need to line up our seams so that they're seamless, or they work right through to one another as we go. So, bent pin, loads of bent pins in my life. Right, so what I'll do is I just put it on and then peel it back. I hope you can see this. Peel it back so I can see where the line is. Yeah, and just make sure that that's interlocking with the seam below. So I got a really good seam, and then I'll put my pin in to hold it, right? But I don't put my pin in all the way, so I can still see whether or not I've got my seam right. Okay. And I might move the pin up a bit. Okay. And I'll do exactly the same with the other one. So look at it and I think, is that correct? Yes, it is. Plop a pin in. Okay. Now, I use glasshead fine pins because I don't want great big holes in my work, so I use fine pins because I'm generally working with cotton, so or polyester. So making sure that the ends are lined together, 1/4 inch as usual. All right. I know that that is right, so I'm going to say right up to the pin, then take the pin out, and then I'm going to make sure making sure I can still see a bit of purple under this bit coming up now, because this is the next bit. We don't want to lose that point, do we? So now again, I'm going to go really slowly and make sure that I don't intrude on the X of that pin and I went slowly there because I had a little bit of forgiving fabric, so I went slowly so it took it up as I went, and then I can carry on and sew the rest of the top. Okay, so I didn't want to lose that cross there, and there we are. Good lines, didn't lose my cross. Okay, I'm not going to iron that for a moment because I just want to do the other end now. So exactly the same, we're going to double check our ends. Yep, that's brilliant. Pop a pin in. Okay, and then double check our seam on that one. Is it going to go exactly the same? And put a pin in to hold it. Yep, so it doesn't move, travel, or walk with the fabric. And then we're going to sew until I get right up to that pin. Then I can take it out. Carry on. I want to keep that flattened seam down as it goes under the foot, and I want to make sure that I don't intrude on that top of that point, and then carry on again without moving the fabric right to the end. Let's see how we did. So now when I fold it back, yes, I can see my point, brilliant, and my lines are pretty good. So there we are, there, whichever way you want to look at it. That's a very simple sawtooth, or what do we call it? Star one or easy star, whatever you like. That's a star, and I'm going to do that 4 times. So I've got these 4 squares. I'm doing it in the same colour fabrics. You can do it in multi fabrics, whatever you want. However, this is your quilt, do it exactly how you want it. But I just would like my 4 corners to all be the same. So now I'm going to give that a press. That's even without a press, mind. So I'm going to quickly set my seam and press it back. Okay, and the same with the other side. Set the seam and press it back, and then we'll see, is it 6.5 inches? Ooh, happen to have 6.5 inch. I'm hoping that you can see this. I don't know whether it's on camera or not, but this is a 6.5 inch ruler. This is so easy, so square it, right? So now I can plop that on there, okay, and I can just, I'm just trying to make sure that I got every bit at the top, every bit at the bottom. I could just shift it slightly that way, yeah. Oop, because I'm not on a flat table here. But however, what I'm saying to you is, that as far as I am concerned, oops, if I look at the top, I'm shifting it and I'm going over bumps. The only thing I would want to cut off that, it is the right size, yeah, is no. If I had to, I'll turn it around so you can see. If I had to, it would be a slither off the bottom. So now, last time we did the 12.5 inch sheet block, yeah, I'll put a link to that underneath. So that's the sheet block that we did. I've got to find a box now to keep all these in, haven't I? Yep. So that was the sheet block. This time we've done the 4 star squares, yeah. And as I said, I want 1 in each corner. I've done all mine the same, but you're quite able to use whatever fabric you like. Let's take one and test it a moment. Don't worry about this on here. This is only because I use it sometimes for when I do my ruler work on my machine as well. So I'm just putting that under and saying, well, that's 6 inches that way. There's a little bit of ragged I could cut off there. And if I turn it round and put that back on there, on the other side, no, that's fine. So that's using a, what do they call it? So easy square ruler. Or if you, again, this is called, I'll put these all underneath. This is called the Creative Grids Stripology Mini, Squared Mini, yeah? 6.5 inch block is the largest white line on here. So if I put it under there, then I could, let me see. No, you see that way looks fine. So if I turn it around and do it, and then plop that back on, what could I cut off? As I said to you, just there on one side, there's a little ragged bit. So just there's nothing on this side, I don't think. No, oh, there was a teeny bit there, see? And a teeny bit there, which I didn't quite get. Okay, so, you know, if you want to, you can square them up, but they should, if you follow the instructions, come out the right size every time. So that's the 6.5 inch block for the 4 corners of the quilt. I'm also I think, although it's not completely finished yet in my mind, I think what I might also do is show you so far what we've made. Well, I think actually I'll wait until we've done the strawberry. Next time we're going to do the strawberry, which is going to be a mixture of pinks and reds, mixture of greens, and then obviously again the white background. And after I've done that one, I'll show you that as it's going to sit in the quilt so far in my mind. Okay, so that's 4 quite easy, simple ones for you to get on with. While I'm figuring out the strawberry block. Okay, brilliant. Please like, please subscribe so that you'll see the next one that comes up. As I said, this is going to be a single side child's quilt for a single bed. So you might think about buying yourself a single piece of batting, single size quilt batting to go behind it. And you might also in your mind think about, what am I going to use for fabric to put on the back of the backing? What's the backing going to be for me? So there's another thing. In all of this, you can plan ahead and think, right, okay, this is what I'm going to need. And also you might think at the same time, well, what am I going to use for borders? Because obviously it's going to have borders on it as well. Okay, so there we are. Come and chat to me, leave comments underneath, and come and chat to us and join the Facebook group, because all the patterns are going to be up on there, and then you know where they are. If you need to download them a few times or whatever, as many times as you like, they're going to be up there. Thank you.